the treasures of heaven, the treasures that we store up for ourselves in heaven, by living for God, by living for Christ, those treasures cannot be destroyed. They are secure and they are eternal. So what Jesus is telling us in verse 19 to 20 is basically this. He's warning us to be wise and not to be foolish. He is warning us and telling us to be wise and not to be foolish. He's telling us and encouraging us to live our lives in such a way that our primary focus are eternal things and not the temporary things of this life. He's telling us that we should rather invest it in living for Him. That's how we build our treasures in heaven. Not just professing with our mouths, but really living for Him, living for His glory. He is telling us to invest our time, our energy, and our effort in building a strong relationship with God. So many build a strong relationship with this world, and when the world passes away, they have no foundation. They are lost. So He's telling us to invest our time, our energy, and our effort in building a strong relationship with God, because when we invest in a strong and close relationship with God, that strengthens our love for God and ensures that God remains our treasure above all else. Where we invest the bulk of our minds, our energy, and our effort, it shows what is important to us. So when we invest in building a strong relationship with God, it strengthens our love for God. And when we have a love for God, that ensures that God remains our treasure above everything else. And that's why He says in verse 21, Jesus says in verse 21 that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The heart cannot be divided. The heart can only be for one person, one place, one thing. And upon the throne of our hearts is either Jesus or it's not Jesus. And what this means is that whatever we value the most, whatever we truly value the most, is what will have the strongest hold over our lives. Whatever we truly value the most, whatever we love the most, whatever we treasure the most, is what will have the strongest hold over our hearts, our mind, and our lives. And this means ultimately that whatever we value the most in life will not only have the greatest influence over our hearts and our lives, but here's the thing, it will ultimately determine where we spend eternity. Whatever sits upon the throne of our hearts will ultimately determine where actually we spend eternity. And we keep talking about eternity, eternity, eternity again and again and again, because here's the thing, nothing is more important than that. Ultimately, when it's all said and done, nothing is more important. What could possibly be more important than where the soul spends eternity? Nothing. Nothing is more important than that. And sooner or later, we all get to the point where we find out. And every single day the Lord gives us is another opportunity for us to be right with Him, to make sure that we are walking closely with Him, honestly with Him, that we are making Him the front and center of our lives and really truly living for Him. So whatever we value the most, whatever we love the most, whatever we treasure the most in life will have the greatest influence over our lives, but ultimately will determine where we spend eternity. And that's what treasures are. A treasure is something that we value, something that we love above everything else. A treasure is whatever consumes the bulk of our thoughts, our minds, our efforts, and our lives. That's our treasure. For some, it's money, it's wealth, it's power, it's ambition, success by any means. For others, it's enjoying the pleasures of this world and enjoying all the leisure of this world. For others, their treasure is their careers, their profession, their status, how people see them, the praise of others. But sadly, for very few, their real treasure is God. For very few, their real treasure is God. Very few in this world make Jesus their treasure, nor do they even care to make Jesus their treasure. And that's why He keeps telling us that we should stay on the narrow road, because He is the narrow road that leads to life. But others have chosen the broad road, They've chosen treasures aside and apart from Jesus. And we're told very clearly in the Word of God that that road leads to destruction. You see, sometimes the things that we treasure the most, even more than we treasure God, can be good things. They can be great things. They can be wonderful things that God has actually blessed our lives with. The things that we actually treasure the most, more than God, can be good things. They can be the things that He has actually blessed us with, like our families, like our wealth, our jobs. And just to be clear, though, God does not expect us not to love our families. He doesn't expect us not to love our wife and our children. Because it is He who has blessed us with them, and He expects us to reflect the love of Jesus to them and to love them as we love ourselves. So I want to be clear, God doesn't expect us not to love our families or not to love our neighbors. No, because it is He who has blessed us with them, and He expects us to reflect the love of Jesus to those around us as well. But here's the tough part for many of us. The tough part is this: our love and our commitment must be first and foremost to Jesus before anything and anyone else, even before ourselves. The tough part for many of us, it's difficult to understand sometimes, is that our love and our devotion and our commitment must be to first and foremost to Jesus than anyone else and anything else, even before ourselves. What does Matthew 22:37 tell us? Matthew 22:37, what does it tell us? It says here, Jesus replied, it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. So why must we make sure that our commitment and our love must be to God first and foremost, before anything else and anyone else, even to ourselves? Because first of all, everything that we have, everything that we are blessed with, every single thing is from the Lord. The gifts that we have is from the Lord. Every single thing is from the Lord. Our jobs and our careers is from the Lord. Our health, our health, without which we cannot earn a living, is from the Lord. Our families and our friends that He's blessed us with is from the Lord. Every breath that we draw, every second is from the Lord. Our very lives is from the Lord. They are all a gift from God. They are all a gift from God. And sooner or later, every one of these gifts pass away. But the giver of the gift is forever, is eternal. So here's the thing. The reason why our devotion must be to God first and foremost is because we cannot afford to value the gift more than the giver of the gift. The reason why God must be the front and center, even before your husband or your wife, God must be the center, first and foremost, because we cannot afford to value the gift more than the giver of the gift. We cannot afford to value the gift more than the giver of the gift. Inasmuch as we love the gift and value the gift very much, we need to appreciate, we need to love the giver of that gift even more. That's why it says here that love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. He's a giver of the gifts. He blessed us with those gifts. So we need to love Him first and foremost more than the gifts themselves. So inasmuch as we love our families and love our children and love our partners and love the job He's given us and love our professions and love our careers and value the health He's given us, the reality is that all those things will sooner or later pass away. But the giver of that gift is eternal. And when we love the gifts, when we value the gifts, when we treasure the gifts more than the giver of the gift, what we do is that we make an idol, a small god, of those gifts. We tell God that we value or we treasure the things He's giving us